here with lots of interest in what's happening between our board and the Board of Education. Chairman Breedlove.
Yes, Chairman Tate, thank you for that. I'd also like to welcome what you just said on that. It was nice to see people here that are concerned about what we consider the most important asset we have in this county, which is our children. Boards are faced with big decisions. I think we approached it with a lot of thoughts, being very careful, and I hope it's going to be good. So welcome everyone, and we're glad to see you. Okay.
Again, thank you, Chairman Breedlove. As I mentioned last time we had this meeting, this is a very important step in the history of Macon County, deciding how we're going to move forward, if we're going to move forward, where we're going to move forward, and why we're going to move forward. As Chairman Breedlove echoed, our children are our greatest asset to this county, and I think you made a strong statement with that. Again, I'd like to welcome all of you. We're going to have open up public comment now. Currently only have one person signed up, but I'll give everyone the opportunity to speak. We do have a very long agenda tonight, so I'm not going to pull a timer on anyone, but if you keep going too long, I'll probably raise my hand and ask you to speed it up. But I think with that being said, we'll open it up. Richard Leitner signed up first, so welcome, Richard.
It's good to be here with the two board meetings. I'd like to talk about the Franklin High School project. You know, it's been going around for a long time, but with my tenure with the county over 35 years, back when Kevin Corbin was the chairman of the school board, we had a school study committee about schools before we touched any elementary school. The first solution that came up was a new high school. Build a new high school, move middle grade here, take the middle grade and make it intermediate. They said no, it cost $27 million. The county spent in excess of $65 million with the elementary schools. They're still overcrowded. And we're back to this high school. This high school, when I went to school, my high school looked identical to this, down on the coast of North Carolina. They replaced it after I graduated. The new high school is 25 years old. Our kids are going into a school this year, this property that's inefficient, totally lacking anything in comparison to the schools you expect in the 21st century. One thing I challenge the commissioners for, I know real estate pretty well. I've valued property in this county for 35 years. If we are going to stay on this site, first thing we need to do is deed the old drive-in theater to the high school, because we bought that 30 years ago for the high school in excess of $450,000. That's 9+ acres. There's also 10 acres across the street of the Higdon property for a little over $1 million. If you know real estate, that's the deal. Buy it. The 3 properties up here by the parking lot, we can't control the campus unless we control those properties. Buy it. Then that gives you almost 40 acres. Relocate the football field over to the Higdon property with whatever facility you need. Build the high school, because I'm telling you, once you build a school here, where are you going to get the property in the future? There is none. You have to buy it. Also, if you build it here, you don't have the expense of $25 to $40 million on a property somewhere else. So spend the $3 million you need right here now. If you build tomorrow, if you build 10 years from now, that land's not going to be available. But the problem, everybody says, we can't afford it. Macon County can afford to invest in their youth more than they can afford to invest in the jails that we're sending the young people to when they get in trouble. If you want to save the county, if you want to save the children, and you want a livable community, protect your children. Education is the biggest thing that we can do to get the children out of the living they have situation, whatever thing. I was the first one in my family to go to college. I came to Western Carolina University. My kids went there, my wife went there. We made something, but if we don't give them children the education they need now, can we afford that more, or can we afford the jails more? I say, go on, buy the property, get the good plan, and move forward. And for taxes, we have the lowest taxes here. And people can complain all they want. 35 years in tax office, I've very seldom had a person come from another state to say their taxes were cheaper. If I go down to Rayburn County with the nice high school, the taxes down there are 2.5 times what your house is right here. So it's pay me now or pay me later. I say pay now, build the high school. Thank you.
Is there anyone else who'd like to speak in public comment? Hayes.
First, I want to thank all the school board for being here and the county commissioners. I think they do a great job. Second, I'm for the new high school. I have concerns. I'm going to have grandkids that's coming to the new high school if we get a new high school. And the tax increase that you was talking about, the 0.25%, is that guaranteed for it to stay here in Macon County to help out pay for the school? That's a concern I have. We need a new high school. Look at it. But at the same time, we don't need this high school due to politics. That's not what our kids are about. We need it. If we need it, we need it because we need it for our kids, not to win office, not to be elected again, or re-elected again. We need it because our kids need it. And we do need a new high school. I'll be the first one to tell people that. I have concerns where money issues comes in. I'm not above paying my taxes or above an increase in taxes to get a new high school. But like Mr. Lochner said, the concern is the grounds. You know, our football field is not the best. Looks really good when those kids are out there graduating on it, though. I will give you that. I think that's the best thing we've done in a long time, having our kids graduate from high school. But we need to think further ahead. Just like when they built the jail, we didn't think far enough ahead. We're sending prisoners to other counties, so we're losing money by sending other prisoners to county. We need to look ahead. We're growing. I got grandkids that's going to have kids. So it's going to, you know, bring more kids in, but we need to think. And the other thing is, we need a trade school. When I come to high school, we had trade schools. We don't have that anymore. We need some of that back. Because all kids ain't going to go to college. It's not for every kid. But if we teach them something while they're in high school, then they're going to learn something and they'll stay here and put their dollars in. Thank you.
Anyone else? All right, going forward. Are there any changes or additions to the agenda, Commissioners?
Yes, Chairman Tate, 2 additions on under 4. A video regarding ADA on the Franklin High School campus.
Okay, item 4A, a video regarding ADA.
And B, a website update on the Macon NC.org website.
So you want under 4B, Commissioner?
Pardon me, sir?
Under 4B.
Yes.
And that was repeat that again, please.
A was video, ADA on Franklin High School, and B was a website update.
Okay, a website update. Thank you. Commissioners, anything else?
No.
Chairman Breedlove, anything from your board? Thank you. All right, we're going to move on. LS3D regarding the Franklin High School project update. I'd like to welcome Mr. Paul Levy and his team.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Everybody here?
Move over and sit right there. Sit right there.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you all for coming. I'd like to particularly thank you for your public comments and you also. I enjoyed listening to that, and we really take all that to heart. I'd like to thank the boards for both of you having us here tonight. Tonight we're here to present the schematic design for the high school. Now, schematic design is an architect word, and what it means is kind of the preliminary, overarching, many of the big goals of the project. And we will then send that to the state for their review. So, go ahead. So, I always go back to the first things we wrote down about this project. And they're touched on many of the things that you do. First of all, I believe that a high school of this type is an economic driver in the community. It will bring the CTE programs, it will bring those trade things back, and when I look at the construction industry right now, we're in trouble. We really are, because the young people are not being trained to be plumbers and bricklayers and electricians, and you know, for so long there was an emphasis on going to college, which is great for some kids, but there are a lot of kids that can make a great living and support their families and have a very good quality of life, and they're going to be those leaders in the future. And I just really believe that a school of this magnitude and a school of this thing give them the opportunity to do that. You know, as an architect, I'm a third generation architect, and I have to every day think the unthinkable. Think about that. I have to wake up every morning and worry about how we're keeping these kids safe. And our buildings do that. And how do they do that? And because we have to be right 100% of the time. Some nut only has to be right once. Think about it. And so the officers, like in the back, thank you for what y'all do, and thank you for keeping the kids safe. We want it to be an inviting thing too. We build buildings that kids want to be. And I'm sure that kids want to be here because all their friends are here and many things, but you know, it needs to be an inviting place. It's the center of the community. All of you use the facility. And all of you have a part. And the facility means something to each one of y'all, and there's a sense of history there. We want to build an energy-efficient building. Now, my daughters accused me not of being a tree hugger because I developed it. But what this is about is saving money for the county so your taxes don't go up to run these buildings. These buildings right here take a lot of energy. They have a lot of doors, and they have energy inefficient systems. And so what we're trying to do with this new building is save money also on the, and there's a sense of community pride. I get to do this in a lot of different places. places, and I'm telling you, kids come back here to live. Kids come back here to work. And every one of these people that I've interacted with throughout this community, yeah, I remember you played football, blah, blah. There's a sense of that community that is really important. These buildings are tired. You know, most of them are older than me. I get tired. And I'm telling you, there's a way that this community can come together. And I know there are a lot of questions. I know there are a lot of answers that, you know, we're searching for. But we have one kind of common goal here, and that's for the children to be given the best education they can get to compete with other places that I know of, and we are working there. And I know the facilities that we're building. So we're going to show you, Emily and Jay are going to show you, give you a pretty high-level view of what we're getting ready to do.
Just a quick overview of the site. Y'all are certainly very familiar with it. This is the sort of the tail end of the last time that we came to speak with you all. This is the place in our presentation the last time we presented to both boards, and where we ended up in that meeting at the end of that presentation. And so we're going to pick up where we left off, and then we'll go a little bit farther into what the work we've done in the last couple of months since we were here last. So this is really the overall site plan of this property. At the end of a project that includes a new stadium, a new building, and the demolition of the existing buildings, which was the decision that we were tasked with exploring at the end of our last meeting. And some of the interesting things that are noteworthy about the site is just a quick overview. You can see the building up in the upper right corner of the property that north faces up right there. Phillips Street is along the right side of your slide. And that is really the back of your property and where all of the deliveries and things would happen around the site. And the front entry piece of that for both buses and cars would happen off of 441 and Panther Drive at its current entry point onto the site. And all of the building is under one roof. Kids can circulate throughout the school day inside of the building without ever leaving one building to go to the next or walking outside. And so we've got secure entry points throughout the building. We have an outdoor courtyard that's protected by the building and secured at the open point towards the back of the site for students to be able to spend time outside in a way that isn't visible to the public. You can see the stadium down in the lower right corner of the property. That is in close proximity to the building, which gives us some opportunities to get from the building out onto the field level. So, for example, the band students on game days can access the building or access the site and the field from directly inside of the building. We keep parking towards the front. We're also flat, really, from the building all the way up to 441 at the front of the site is flat, which is a big shift for this campus, which is very little of it is flat, and there's a lot of challenges in getting from one building to the next. So that's the place that we left off at the end of our last presentation, which was really understanding how the site was going to work, where the new building would go on the site, how the logistics factor from how do we build on a campus that is occupied with students all year long. And so from this place that we left, nothing has really changed about the site from where we left off. And so what we have done since then is really dig into the specifics and the details about the building. I'm going to pass the torch to Jamie.
I want to talk about the really high-level organization of the design, and a couple things I want you to think about when I'm walking through this plan. You know, high schools are, complex buildings, a lot of program, a lot of different spaces. So I want you to think about accessibility, and specifically ADA accessibility. I want you to think about circulation, and specific to circulation is security. And the last thing we're focusing on is adjacency. So what spaces are next to other spaces that creates some sort of synergy or interaction? And so starting off, you can see on the sort of lower mid left-hand side, we have our secure entry into a secure vestibule. And a justification of that is the admin. So we've kind of organized the plan around a central corridor that's running sort of diagonally across the page up to the dining room. On the right-hand side, we have the gymnasium spaces. So we have a full-size gym that can seat, how many? 1,500 students, and then an auxiliary gym. We also have an auditorium. And on the left side of the corridor, we have the resource spaces that have access to a secure courtyard, and our dining room space, which also has access to the secure courtyard for accessibility for students. On the upper side, the two sort of boomerang-shaped classroom wing, that's all the CTE programs, so that's the ag, welding, auto body shop, etc. They all have all access to that ring road that runs around the site so that we can get roll-up doors and deliveries and all those things that are needed to sort of service that CTE program. And I think the courtyard, beyond being a space that students can use for outdoor learning or outdoor dining, it also provides opportunity to get daylight, natural daylight into all parts of the building. So there's not really a part of this building that doesn't have access to natural light, and that's really important from a learning perspective. Moving along to the upper floors, on the upper level we have the media center located there, guidance, and then some fine art spaces, and the balance is classroom wings on both the second floor and the third floor. And I'm going to skip back real quick back to the second floor. One thing you'll notice, the series of red arrows, we're creating a circular circulation pattern with an elevated walkway that connects the dining room / media center to the classrooms. And that's important to keep people or keep students within the building itself while circulating, and really creates a good flow so that between classes they're not having to spend all the time walking from one part of the school to the other. And then to balance the space out on the lower level, one of the things that's important about the site is that we've located the football field is about 20 feet below the main level. And we've located some of the programs, some of the spaces, on the same level as the football field for access. So we've got all the locker rooms, team locker rooms, the weight room, and then the band and chorus rooms are located so we can have that direct adjacency for practices for the band. And this is kind of the campus as it exists now. And I think what's really key here to understand and look at is all of those buildings on the left-hand side. They're disconnected. There's a lot of exterior doors. There's a lot of exterior walls. There's obviously a huge security issue with that. There's accessibility issues. All these buildings are on different levels, so it's hard to get from one end of the campus to the other, especially if you have a disability. And then, you know, I also like to highlight the Panther Drive. The fact that that drive goes all the way through the campus is a security risk. So I'm going to show you kind of an after shot. This is what the campus would look like when it's complete. And I think it's interesting to see the difference, the spatial difference in the compactness that we get with really a mostly two and then in the classroom a 3-story building. So we go from this to this. And this has all the program, all the space you have in the existing campus, plus 60,000, 80,000 more square feet. So we're packing a lot into this space, but providing a much richer experience for students, a much safer experience. And I think you'll notice too, you see the floor differential, a little bit from the field. We've got nestled into that embankment the bleacher seating for the football field, so there's a nice relationship between that field and the school, and we want to kind of celebrate that. It's unique to Franklin that the football field is so close in proximity to the school, and I think, you know, just thinking through things, I think one of the things I love about this picture is the two classroom wings face off to the north, directly to downtown Franklin. And the way the topography works is you're on kind of like a perch, and the road dips down and it comes back up almost to the same level as the high school when you get downtown. So you're at eye level with the school in the distance, and you'll be able to have a clear view of those two classroom wings from downtown Franklin. And I think there's a nice sort of relationship that we're creating between downtown, you know, the community, the local economy, et cetera, with the school. So I think that's a really neat feature of this particular design that's a result of the location of the building on this part of the site.
So one of the things that we're very conscious of is the budget. We don't build frivolous things. We don't succumb to nice to have. We build what people need and what kids need. And that's something we're really proud of. If you look at the budget that we developed, it is $118 million. And that's a lot. And it's a lot, but you're getting so much more. So the cost, so I want to go through this just real fast. Is the cost of work is actually $73 million. You have contingencies and then I have $10 million worth of cost escalation. So I don't have to come back and ask them for money. And we know that prices are going up 1% a month right now. If you go to the grocery store, if you fill up your car, if you look at your cable bill, I don't know, everything is going up and inflation is just eating us alive. So I've got $10 million in the budget for inflation. Now you don't have to, if it comes in at $73 million, hallelujah, and we don't have to use that, but it's up to them, and they don't have to go back and convince you all, you need more money. So you get down to the bottom line, and it's $118 million. We have cost estimators that are working on that, and at every step of the way, we refine that budget. And we inform them, and we keep you informed of where we are on that budget. But budgets to us are very serious because there's nothing worse than being over the bids on bid day. Because I'm a dog, they're mad at me, they're mad at me, and y'all are all mad at me. And so I want that, okay? And we're very serious about staying in that budget. So, we recommend that the Macon County School Board and the Macon County Commissioners authorize LS3D, that's us, to submit the schematic design package for Franklin High School and the design development for the stadium to local and state agencies for review. They will have about 6 weeks to review the project and then we'll get their comments back. And then we'll respond to those comments. So, Mr. Chairman, that is my presentation.
Thank you, Paul. Are there any questions from the board? I'm going to open it up. Is there any questions from the public? Go ahead, Commissioner.
Can you go back to where it showed the different levels? Right there. No, right there. Where is the agriculture department?
I'm going to go back to you. I'll show you real quick. Agriculture is in this corner right here. Oh, sorry. Agriculture classrooms are in this corner right here.
And the greenhouse is in the parking lot?
Right down the side of this parking lot right here.
Okay. That's just not on there.
Yeah, it's just outside of the window of this particular view. If you go back, and I'll show you on the side plan. That's the spot right there. Oh, I've lost my pointer here. That would be the spot for the outdoor programming as part of the ag programming to include the greenhouse.
And also, the other thing while you're there, future expansion for this building, my grandfather always told us that would be in that area right there. You'd have a 3-story addition with a classroom on that way, and there's plenty of room for the future expansion.
did y'all consider building where the second story is designing it and engineering so you can put a third floor on the existing two-story building?
No, sir, because to put another floor on top of the gym, the structure of that would have to be such that it would be more economical to go out. And the things that you would build would be mostly classrooms or in addition to the media center or as you expand the schools. The gym is the size of the gym.
The classroom wing is 3 stories.
And yeah, the classroom wing is 3 stories. Already.
Commissioner Young.
Well, this photograph right here really shows or highlights the importance of Mr. Leitner's question. And I've often had that question myself. I think now would be a good time to ask the board, ask the attorney, what would it take to transfer title of the old drive-in to the county to be a part of this process? Is that an option? Does anybody know?
For me, it just takes doing a deed.
So it really just takes a motion and we can transfer that property to ourselves for expansion.
Our only comment is more of education. I was thinking we would gladly accept that if you so chose to move forward with that. Because we had some ideas.
I'm looking up there. If we have to draw the line right there, and that's a 40-foot retaining wall. Is that okay?
Can I talk?
Sure. Please.
I think anytime that the school can have more property, it's a good thing. Especially when we're looking at a master plan like that. And if we have some adjacent property, or some properties you mentioned, personally, we would like to take a look at that and what it would mean, because it might reduce the cost because of the retaining wall situation in the range.
I'm sure I can speak for our board that we wouldn't have any issue. I mean, the county has that land, but we don't have any issue with y'all looking into that. So. Sorry. Sir, can you just state your name?
Yeah, Ryan Milbury. Can you tell us what's the building that's just to the left of the football field? I don't think that was mentioned right there. What's that building?
It is a field house and concession stands and that kind of thing.
Part of the stadium?
Yes, sir. Part of the stadium.
Okay. And if I may move on here.
Sure.
Have you, for what was stated at the beginning, have you all looked into trying to require the corner to square off the school? It seems to me just absolutely.
Yes.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Sure. Just say your name, please.
Marion. I might be a little confused. New high school, great, looks great. I'm looking for the baseball field and the soccer fields are they planned in any area for a brand new school?
That's a great question.
Is that something that you think that excess land could accommodate? Or I have grandchildren who play football, soccer, and baseball. It's just a question of.
And I think it may be a question for the principal or the coach, or the school board or the superintendent. But yes, all of those things are being considered right now. We are very early in the process.
So what's the toss around being considered? What does that look like when you say it's being considered?
It means it's being considered. It means there are trade-offs that you have to have sometime if that's all the dirt we've got.
So we really don't have. Yeah.
Didn't say that. We put words behind it.
No, I'm asking you.
Yes, ma'am. And so what we're doing, and part of what we're talking about tonight, is looking at some adjacent alternate things that we can put some of those fields on, because it's a good idea. But right now, they have a baseball field that they're using.
This is the stadium, the turf stadium, which would be a multi-use surface. Soccer would compete on that stadium.
Okay, that's great.
Yes, ma'am. And we, like I said, we would build that stadium, and we would build that stadium big enough for right now because of the width of the track, which we can't do that. And then we had practice fields down at the bottom, and so softball and other things could be used on that.
Well, thank you for answering that, because that did clear up a little bit of a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Here,
Coach?
I'm Jay, I'm not the coach.
Thank you.
But I just wanted to clear up about the football field. It's not a football field, that's an athletic field, but it's a bit more. It's a classroom for people like me that teach physical education, which I know a lot of people think that we don't teach. We'll come out there when we've got 60 people in that 3,000 square foot playground and see if we teach. But we'll use it every day for keeping kids active and more healthy. But I think Dr. Baldwin answered it. The soccer team will play in there, and that's where they should be playing. And they will, and that's going to be a fantastic facility because it'll be astroturf. Now, I'd rather play on grass, but I'd rather not take care of it. Turf will be ready 365 days a year, 24/7, regardless of the weather, regardless of how many people's playing on it. Our band can practice on it every day. Instead of practicing down there in the dirt cloth that they have to practice in now. People say, oh, well, the football team practices on the football field. No, they don't. We quit that years ago, and we've got a band director that bought into that, and a fantastic band and regiment and chorus and all that bought in to not. That's why our field looks so good. But a turf field will look better, and it'll look better year round. But it'll be for all the athletes, and in the field house, because I've been part of that, they'll have their own, the soccer will have their own locker room. And it'll be a whole lot better and nicer than what they have now, and so forth and so on. But anyway, I just wanted to clear that up.
Thank you.
So what we're trying to do is try to get as many of those multi-purpose fields, and I think the one change from grass to turf, you can hear it allows many of those things to go on. Where before you couldn't because you can't have the grass and the other grass, and it just wasn't available. With the turf, it gives you a lot more options. But thank you for that question.
All right, a couple more questions. So,
Jerry Moore, I have a couple of questions. Do you have a similar design that you've done in another town that we could potentially look at or view that's already been built?
No, sir, this is not a prototype. This is not something that we have designed before. We try to take each individual community and respond to the community that we are working in and come up with the site. You know, the site dictates where a lot of this stuff would be. It's just hard to take something and plug it down. We have many high schools that have completed one over in James finished over in Henderson. And you can see many of the, I mean, it has classrooms and a gym. They're just configured together.
Okay. I mean, I didn't know if there was something similar that give us an idea.
Yeah, I'll say there are aspects of, say, Hendersonville, for example. Like, we have an auxiliary gym at Hendersonville that you can see. You currently don't have one, so you don't really know what you're looking for. But I can show you an example of how they use it. They also have a secure outdoor dining area, so I can show you how they use that space. You currently don't have that. So there are many things that could be similar, but not, like Paul said, it's not a prototype.
That's fair. And the other is this going to be more or less parking spaces? Are they identical? Are we losing or gaining parking with this new design?
Right now, some of the next steps for us is to work with DOT and MSTA to really understand the traffic needs for the site. Some of that is the amount of queuing lanes that we need for car drop-off, the amount of bus parking and stacking that we need, and the parking that we need. And so it's a little bit early to say exactly how many spaces we'll end up with, but we're going to have to respond to the needs that DOT and MSTA outline for school campuses with regards to all of those things, traffic and pedestrian crossings and parking and stacking lanes for all of those things, with the goal being to contain as much of those things on our campus as we can so that we don't interfere with the public roads.
Also, sir, a new best friend of blue sweatshirt who's always trying to park in space for us. We're going to consult with him also about how many buses, where that's going to be, what all of that is. But we have a basic plan that we can send to school planners and let them look at, and they'll give us comments back also. We have a pretty good idea of what that takes place.
And just one last question.
Yes,
I know expansion is a concern for a lot of people. We're a growing community, really don't know how much more we're going to grow, potentially significantly. Could could we build a fourth floor, not finish it, have it in existence, would that be cost effective or would that not be cost effective as far as thinking down the road if you had to add more space? And I'm done.
Thank you, sir. What I feel personally is that the addition out into the front of that school of the classroom and that type of thing would be much more cost effective, and it would be easier on the kids than having a fourth floor. On top of that, it would just be more cost effective to come back, and now when you know what you need is 10 years from now, you know the types of classrooms and that you need. In the meantime, we have plenty of absorption in the school as well. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Maggie Jennings. I'm hoping that you could expound a little bit on the auditorium in the fine arts area. How much seating does it provide? I'm not sure how it compares to our seating that we have now. Also, hoping maybe you could enlighten us about storage. We've got a fantastic theater program here, and I know that's obviously a concern, as well as dressing rooms. Thank you.
Thank you.
Currently, the auditorium has a seating capacity of 450 students, or seats, not just students for sure. And we've got, if you look in the back right here, there's loading area off of our main loading in the back of the building so that we can get sets and props and things like that directed to the auditorium. There's in the wings adjacent green room space and storage space built into that plan with the chorus and band and dance programs located one level down, but on that same end of the building near where the auditorium is. One of our next steps as the project moves forward would be to have a lot more detailed meetings with folks like the fine arts folks or the CTE faculty and all of these other little departments that we've talked to at a pretty high level at this point. We would really dig into those needs and to show you the plan in great detail and to understand exactly how much storage you have, take a look at the spaces that you're in right now and understand where they fall short or what might be an evolution or an improvement on what you're working in right now, to really hone in on the specifics and the details of that. But based on our sort of experience around high schools, we've made a suggestion to start with, but it really is just a starting point of that conversation.
We would definitely recommend putting bathrooms on the main floor.
We did do that. There are restrooms.
I'm painfully aware of that. Yes, ma'am.
All right, I just want to say that I know this is a very, very important topic for everybody, so let's see if we can wrap this up in about 10 minutes and we'll move on. Just a few more questions, please. Go ahead.
Hi, Molly Phillips. Just to tag on to what you were saying about changes, I was just going to ask about protocol. If say this gets passed tonight, what your proposal is in front of the boards, what does that mean for making changes after that? What do you show the state, and then what can be changed after they approve what you've shown them, I guess?
So, design development, good question. Design development would be the next architecture phase of that, and that means we get our engineers involved, we do that, but more importantly, we meet with all the teachers, we meet with all of the constituents, stakeholders within the school. And we talk about the science labs, we talk about the auditorium space, we talk about the kitchen equipment. All of those things are put together at that point, and we move forward. The main thing we have to do is we have to stay within the budget. Okay, so we have to be resistant, and I know, Molly, you and I have been at it a couple of times about might as well. We can't, as architects, just do might as well. We have to be the keepers of that money, and we have to be very serious about that, as you know I am, and I'm sorry. But, but it will be a time for those changes, and it's times for us to listen and to come up with things that are, in fact, things that we would want to incorporate and need to incorporate. So, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Just a few more questions. Look, I don't see any hands going up. Okay. Commissioner Shields, sorry, I was looking at the audience.
Well, are we on? Something is wrong. Okay. We're going to move into, you've been talking about why
Franklin High School is an old campus.
that's not me. But looking through some of the candidates, including Mr. Bill and myself, we spend a lot of time in the community, and we have a lot of questions about what's the matter with the old Franklin High School. And having been a principal here for 21 years, it's very dear to my heart too. But also, when we look at that, today we were able to do the website, the county website. Let me give it to you, MaconNC.org. On this website today is the real reason also that you need to do high school. It's there. It's going to show you the pros and cons of the old high school here, especially of those 7 buildings. So the candidates, and I say again, including Mr. Bill and I, we cannot meet with everybody. We've met with fire departments, we've met with civic groups, we've met with the community centers, but we can't reach everybody. So we figured the best way to reach people in this day and time is through a website. And that's why we have a website on there today, as of this evening. And we hope to put this piece on there as we move forward. But let me just mention a couple of things that will help you on that website. When you get on the website, you will see it'll have 7 buildings in red. On that website, you'll be able to push it. Let's say 1, that'll show you the main building. Then there'll be a script about the main building, the pros and cons of it. And also you'll be able to see what it would cost, what it would be if you move the main building into a 50 year, that'd make it 120 years old. It's 70 years old now, you make it renovated for another 50 years, it makes it 120 years. But that information is in there. And also, in this information sheet, you have what we call a matrix. It will be, I call it the red line. You'll have red, yellow, and green. On this matrix, take time to look at it. Because we will see the pros and cons of each building, each of those 7 buildings. You'll see 13 items down the side, and each one of those is rated as red, yellow, or green. Take time to look at that, and you'll see why we need a new high school. Along with this, if you look at the price, that we have a price, it has an age price of each building. And it talks about 1 through 9, it talks about building 10. All thoughts about Charlotte. Look on your price sheet here, and you'll see it. Look under number 10. Now, I wasn't always up for a new high school. I had a little piece out there for renovation until I saw what was under number 10. When you look at it, it talks about, on the campus we're talking about now, where we're going to build a new building, they're going to put a modular school there. And if you look at that modular classroom space, while renovating, it's going to cost $8 million. Now, you look at that, and we're wrong to digest that. And that's going to take 4 to 6 years to renovate Franklin High School while students are moving out to a Washington unit on the campus that we won't be able to do high school on. These are things I mentioned are just some of the random reasons what we do in high school. And if you look at the old high school, you will see that there's definitely safety problem. You look and see there's a space for academic, and you can see with the need for academic. But one thing we want to show you video. People, we say this all the time. A one-legged man and a two-legged race is not equal. We're going to show you a video of an ADA situation on Franklin High School campus. If we could do that at this time.
Franklin High School is an old campus with old infrastructure. It's been here since the 1950s, and one population of students that has been left behind by its infrastructure are students with disabilities. Very difficult to navigate our campus. Number of obstructions, uneven pavement surfaces, uneven surfacing on sidewalks. So there are a number of difficulties here for students with disabilities.
We had an increased response of parents who were very trepidatious about the high school. They were very worried if their children was going to be hurt, if their children was going to fall down, how in the world were they going to get to PE or to their favorite classes. So we've got a history of people not sending their children with exceptional needs or mobility issues. They've been circumventing the high school or staving it off as long as possible. So one of the big issues that we have at Franklin High School when we're making a plan for a student is pre-planning the route they're going to take to get where they need to go and planning out the time that it takes to make the walk and finding the staff that's going to meet and help the student get there because of the doors, because of the elevators, and the different situations that they have to get in. For instance, for Patrick to go from my room, which is on the bottom floor of the main building, to the gym, he has to walk to the end of the main building to the elevator, which is maybe 100 feet or more, go up the elevator, come all the way back down the hallway that he just walked down, but upstairs, go out the door, across the covered area to the careers building, take an elevator down the careers building, go out the back of it, maybe 25, 30 feet outside through a fence, back the length of the gym to just get to the arbor. And we spend a lot of time pre-planning who's going to meet him because we have to meet him 10, 15 minutes before our class is out so that he can help out with the doors. And it does cause some stress because he's missing 15 to 20 minutes sometimes of the class. And that's just one of the issues that we face.
There's a lot of times when we just have to either leave really early and that way we've missed out on a lot of time that we could be doing activities, or just not do them at all. And of course it's even more difficult when you go in the weather.
My name is Dana Benson, and I am a teacher assistant in the exceptional children's classroom. This is actually my first year. Me and Emma are going to do it together. I came from NDI with Emma. She is used to being in a building that she can get anywhere all the time. The art room was right down the hall from us, PE was right around the corner, so she was able to maneuver the campus all by herself, the entire time. Somebody would need to kind of be with her just in case she fell or something like that, but she was able to go anywhere, anytime. And like I said, she loved that. She loved the independence of being able to go and do what she needed to do, and she just doesn't have that opportunity here.
It's usually a two-person job to get somebody in and out of the building if they're in a wheelchair. We have some obstacles that we have to go up hills. Very difficult because they are bigger kids. They're adults, basically, in wheelchairs, and it makes it hard for them to get around.
Hi, my name is Tammy Yeomans. I'm a physical therapist for Macon County Schools, and I currently have 36 students here that have mobility issues. And I wanted to talk a few minutes about some of the issues at the high school that have been difficult for the students. One of the difficult things here specifically, not only just the layout of the campus, which is a lot of hills and it's super spread out, that's very hard for the kids, which I know is a difficult thing to fix quickly, but just being able to get in and out of the doors in a timely manner and in an energy efficient manner is very difficult. You'll see a clip of me coming into the front two doors in a wheelchair. I haven't even thought front doors, there's doors to every single building they enter and exit. So it would be super beneficial to have buttons that they can access the doors to open with maybe their own keypad for the kids who need it so they can get in and out. Because I have a lot of kids coming up in the next few years who will also be here. And that would be a great thing to offer our students here in Macon County.
If you've not had an opportunity to walk the halls of Franklin High School in a long time, I would encourage everybody to do so. It's really important to see the interior of the structure so you can see those challenges that exist for students.
I would like to give every student on campus the opportunity to choose whatever classes they would like to have. Currently, our classrooms are so spread out, it takes so much time for some of our students to get from one end of the campus to the other. It just makes it really difficult. And some of our students don't have the opportunity to take some of the outlying classes because the ag building is so far away, the fine arts building or art is so far away, auto mechanics, carpentry. Those classes are so far away. Some of our students that have mobility issues or specific disabilities are now able to access those classes because of the landscape we have here on campus. And that's really not fair. I would love for every student to have the opportunity to take whatever classes that they choose to take so they can enjoy their 4 years experience here at Franklin High School.
We've been able to, through our capital outlay request from the county commissioners this past year, we have secured a UTV that can, it has a ramp that we can put a wheelchair on, and we have seats with straps, seatbelts that we can take students to classes around campus to minimize some of the time out of classes that they would have spent making the long treks. So that's one step we've taken, but it's just the tip of the iceberg for solving some of these issues. There has to be some change. We can't continue to say somebody should do something about that. This building was built in 1952 that we're sitting in, the main building, and it's 2021. So it's very important. We need to do something today for these students who are here now being educated.
Thank you, Commissioner Shields. Thank you, Commissioner Shields. You have
Thank you.
another item on the side?
No, just want to say thank you.
Okay. Let's move on to your second item, under item line item 4 regarding the website. Is that you've already gone over?
I mentioned that a little bit, but I'd like to say that website one more time. It's MaconNC.org. Danny, has your wife tried that tonight? I talked to her earlier. Is it on there?
Say again?
Is it on there? When I asked you tonight to try that, if you had the opportunity. All right, it's on there, people. So go online there, and I think as candidates, it would give you a better idea of why we need a new high school, and it'll show you some of the things that are wrong with the old high school. It needs to be changed. And I think those are questions that you're going to run into. Excuse me. You're going to run into as you campaign. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Commissioner Shields. Mr. Tony, before we move on to your request, I'm going to take a few more comments here, and we'll move on to your request. That's something to say. Chairman Breedlove, any more comments? Any comments from your board?
I don't have any prepared comments. I would challenge anyone to just watch what we watched. Have any doubt whatsoever in my mind the need for this high school. I mean, I have a hard time watching that young man struggle. And he deserves better. He deserves everything. He deserves the same consideration that every child in this high school gets. But I don't think we're doing that these days, you know. I think it was Mr. Cuthbert, Bobby Cuthbert said, it's not now, when? And I think it's word of this board has made it very clear that we feel like when is now. So we urge y'all to at least consider it. Thank you.
Thank you. Fellow commissioners, any comments?
Speaks for itself.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right.
We've had these problems for a while, right?
Yes.
So what makes now?
It's time to move forward.
Why didn't we try to do something 5-6 years ago?
Agreed. I'll help you. I'll help you with that in a second. I'll help you answer that. And I can tell you from your comments up here, I'm not running for re-election. I'm not looking for votes. I'm not looking for a pat on the back on this. Since I only had this seat for just a little bit longer, I'm going to give everyone in here my opinion on it and how I feel about it. I'm 100% in support of it. So why did we do this 10 years ago? I came on this board 11 years ago. I remember one of my very, very first conversations as I came on this board, we were looking at goals and outlines of where we were headed as a county. I see Senator Corbin in the back. Senator Corbin was a part of that board. Bobby Cuthbert was part of that board. I believe Ron Haven was part of that board at that time. Commissioner Bill was part of that board, and we did have some discussions on how we're going to go. In reality, we couldn't afford it at that time. The county wasn't ready. We had a tremendous debt load from the elementary schools and the new construction that we were doing at that point, and we just weren't ready to go take a larger debt load. I don't even know if we could have gotten it at that time. So, but you know what? That crowd, and I'll give Senator Corbin another pat on the back because it was part of his leadership, because he'd just come off the school board, could see that. He knew we needed a new high school, and he helped roll this ball forward to getting this county in a good financial condition so that we can do it. So you know what, 11 years later, we're ready now. This board, I can't speak for them, I shouldn't say that, but the county financially, in my opinion, is ready to be able to handle this. Yeah, there's a large elephant in the room. That elephant, y'all can hear it and smell it. There's a big election coming up, and there's going to be some new leaders coming on here, so that's why I'm saying my opinion doesn't really matter. I'm telling y'all, I've been for 11 years now. I'm ready to see it happen. And I hope that I personally have just been a very small part of rolling that bowling ball down the lane. I hope it strikes the pins. And my voice is starting to shake a little bit with this because it worries me. It worries me how hard that I've worked, that our leadership in this county's worked to try and set us up in a position to finally make this happen. And I hope whoever the new commissioners are moving forward, we'll see it to fruition. Right. And I'll be there to pat them on the back, and I don't want to pat myself on the back, I want to pat them on the back for seeing it, because there's a lot of hard work still to do, and I hope they'll do it. I'm going to move this on unless there's another comment. All right. Mr. Bennett, you made a request to send can you repeat that for me or clarify that about sending it to the state for a review? Is that what you mean?
Yes, sir. So all we need to do is send the schematic design package that we presented and we prepared to the State Department of Public Instruction for their review and comments. And so it takes them 4 to 6 weeks to review it, and then we'll get their comments back, and then we'll review those comments with your board and with the school board. It's a typical way it happens.
Okay. Mr. Manager, board? Yes. Sorry, I see a question here. Go ahead.
The package you submit to the state for review,
yes, sir.
How close are you to having that packet?
They plan to send it by the end of the week.
And that is a group of documents.
Yes, sir.
Preliminary design, etc. Is that going to be available for us as decision makers?
Yes, sir. A copy of that will typically go to the superintendent of schools and to Derek as a, it's just part of public. It's a public document.
Okay.
I would ask, what does that review obligate the county? Does that obligate the county? So it's a preliminary review by the state.
It's something we do on every project that we do. We send it to school planning, Department of Insurance, and sometimes the insurance doesn't want to look at it at this point, but DPI does. And they give us very thoughtful comments. The architects are very thoughtful about, they look at schools all over the state and give us comments about, hey, how about this, or if you look at this. And it's a very good process. But there is absolutely zero obligation to move forward once you do that. That can only be authorized by these two boards.
And that reveals that you're about 30%.
It reveals, according to our contract, that we're about 15%. But yes, we are about 30%.
Mr. Chairman, we need a motion from this, or can we just do it on my heads by consensus?
By consensus.
Okay. I'm fine with it, Commissioner.
That's the next step.
Paul?
That's the next
Gary?
step.
Okay.
Second.
Gary, Ronnie, okay. You can proceed forward with that.
Yes.
Yeah, you're going to forward. We got a consensus.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Unanimous consensus. Thank you. We're going to move on to item number 5, Macon Middle School operating bid acceptance. Mr. Manager, do you want to roll on that, or do you want to give us background on it?
I'll be happy to. Mr. Chairman, as you see here, item number 5, the microphone. Yeah, you need to get one. I'll get up here.
I can hear you better without a microphone. You want to sit up here?
Item number 5 on your agenda is the Macon Middle School water bid acceptance. As you'll see here, this project was identified in the capital improvement plan for completion in fiscal year 23. The county has appropriated funding in the fiscal year 23 budget in the amount of $2,640,000. We received bids for this project on September 28, 2022 that have been reviewed by the Liaison Committee. The 3 bids we received were from Carolina Specialties Construction at $2,519,250, Brantley Construction at $2,590,400, and H&M Construction at $2,826,900. After reviewing these bids, we have found the lowest responsible bidder to be Carolina Specialties Construction at $2,519,250. Again, that is within the funds appropriated of $2,640,000. So with that being said, following the meeting of the Liaison Committee would ask this board to consider awarding the bid for the construction of the middle school locker room project to Carolina Specialties Construction for the base bid plus alternates 5 and 6 in the amount of $2,519,250. That motion will also need to include authorization for the county manager to enter into contract with Carolina Specialties Construction. I'm happy to take any questions.
Chairman Breedlove, I presume you're more to the table, but just acknowledge that.
Yeah, if we need to take a vote, I don't think we'll have to wait for it.
Commissioners, any questions?
Mr. Manager, did you vet this company? Has this company been vetted? Where are they from? Who are they?
Carolina Specialties Construction, yes, they have been vetted. They've actually done work for us before on the Highlands School, I believe, Dr. Baldwin, if you want to speak more to that. They do have a reputation in Macon County.
They did part of a lot of projects, and they had other plans that were work was successful from that back. So yes.
And they have met all qualifications, per North Carolina general statutes, to be the lowest responsible bidder.
Good. Any further questions, Commissioner Young?
No, as liaison to the school board, I'd like to make a motion we enter into a contract agreement with Carolina Specialties Construction.
All right, we have a motion on the floor by Commissioner Young.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Shields. All in favor? Aye. Let the record reflect it. Yes, so thank you. Item number 6, Macon Middle School track discussion. We roll with that, or give us a little background. Sorry, I keep putting you on the spot, Mr. Manager.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. This project has not been identified in the CIP for Macon County. It has been identified in the fiscal year 23 school system capital outlay request. During the most recent liaison committee meeting, some of the things the liaison committee discussed, numerous attempts to repair the track for Franklin High School have failed. There's been an inability to hold track meets at Franklin High School. the potential construction at FHS will further inhibit usage of this track facility. The school system has received a quote which has been discussed by the Liaison Committee. They received that quote on July 15th of 2021 for $657,070 from Competition Athletic Services. That, of course, is at an amount that will require this project to be formally bid should the board desire to move forward with that. We also need to remember that this quote is dated at over a year old, so probably wouldn't hurt to have get another quote should the board decide that this is something they want to pursue. The Liaison Committee in this instance just asked the school board and the board of commissioners to discuss this project along with the other projects that some of which are listed here on the agenda, and discuss and prioritize those projects and give some direction as to which way we need to go.
Thank you, Mr. Matt.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Mr. Breedlove, Chairman Breedlove, any comments on your end?
Just that I think the discussion concerning track situation has been ongoing now for years. We're aware of the high school issues there down at the center. I don't think I'm saying anything out of turn. The liaison from there, but I do think that there has been discussions concerning how to finance this. I think Lori was involved in that and some other things, Dr. Coggins, concerning grant money, and the school system also agreeing to use the contingency from leftover from Macon Middle, and then we also have received a grant for over $100,000 that we will designate to go into this project. So yes, we think it's a vital project, and that's why we put it on the project.
Good. I don't disagree with you at all. Just my personal opinion, I haven't seen that bid yet, but gosh, it seems $657,000 seems a tremendous amount to me. So, but it may be all there for the removal of that surface and then putting it down on that. Maybe I'll whack up never installing. So, any questions from Robert?
Just a little history, Mr. Chairman. I don't know how much we've put in it since I've been on this board, but I know we did it twice. Blistered the first time and the second time. We tried to repair those blisters because there's so much water. It's almost impossible. So, you know, this 600-something thousand to put that into that old track that we hope is going to be in the dump. Anyway, I think we need to have more discussions about that.
This is at the middle school. They're talking
We're not
about
talking about the high school.
No, that's completely coming out.
Oh, if it's the middle grade, will this make it, Mr. Breedlove, will this make that track the right size as far as competition goes?
I think it is.
Yes, I think the track now is conforms to the size that it is a standard, regulation track now, and by doing the yes, will comply with the
and you don't have to encroach on the field or anything, it's just a matter of redoing what's there.
That's correct. I think the quote included taking it down. I'm going to look at the ball, take it all the way down, starting from the base and building up and making it a track that we probably will last for the foreseeable future.
If you recall, the issue we had with the high school track was that the resurfacing company would not work in that track because the asphalt and the gravel base had deteriorated and it needed to be replaced as well. What they're telling us is that the Macon Middle School track is in that condition now. Pavement has to come up, gravel has to be replaced, or something has to be done to that gravel base. Repave and then resurface.
So, Mr. Manager, do you need a motion to go ahead and get current prices and the scope of work?
Sorry, do we have a question? Go ahead.
I want to say that competitive, who did you say the bid was from?
It was from Competition Athletic Services.
It looks like people that done the track down here the last time it was done. So,
mean, and I know that they said that they weren't gonna guarantee the work. I bet it's a big part.
Neither go.
Yes, sir. I would just say definitely, I was getting up bid.
Absolutely. Again, Commissioner Gill, back to your question. With this, although this quote is a year old, that was provided by the schools, so it is dated, and at $657,000, it is going to exceed the threshold that is required by general statute to have a formal bid. So we would need to get to put out a request for bids.
The schools would need to get
The
bids.
schools would need to put out a request for bids.
Who's going to do the scope of work?
I assume the schools have a scope of work developed. They have gotten one proposal back based on the scope of work, competition athletic services, so it would be that same, similar scope of work.
Sure. I'm personally in favor of this. I think that, I've watched my son play soccer on that field a number of years, and I've seen that track. I'm personally in favor of it, and I'm fine with this board. If y'all agree with it, if somebody wants to make a motion, we can use the leftover contingency. We can go ahead and appropriate it towards that track. If everyone else is good with it, I'm happy to discuss that, but I think it needs to be happening.
Don't we need to know how much it costs before we spend it?
Sure, I agree, but I think it does, but I'm fine with appropriating the funds for it too, from that. Because doesn't this fund have to stay at that level?
It does.
Or we can apply to the locker room project, which is.
Yes, it would be the funds that could be used for this are certainly funds that are remaining at Macon Middle School. The funds that are remaining at Macon Middle School would have to be used at Macon Middle School, either for, to be placed toward the locker room project, or to be placed toward a new project such as the track or subdesign.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Go ahead, Paul. Yeah. I noticed on their liaison committee recommendations that we were going to, the board was going to discuss and prioritize this particular item. I think that's a good approach because there's two more items on here, the Highlands soccer field swamp and the Highlands pre-K. And then the last few days I've heard we're having an issue with the septic or the treatment plant at Nantahala School. Well,
that may have served last few days, but that's been on our calculator. We talked about the importance of that ever since I came on board 14 years ago. And it's been on our calculator request every year since then, for us to then sewage. Because I understand the situation of how over there. If that system goes out, we have to shut school down.
Okay, I think that's pretty important.
Yes.
And then one night, Superintendent Baldwin came to us and said that the HVAC system, the geothermal wells at Iowa School, there's $1 million problem out there.
What the board has done, we're actually looking to use some of our federal funds to take care of that. So we have not come back to your board to ask for funding for that project.
But is it remedied?
It is in process of being remedied, yes.
But it just seems prudent to me that we prioritize we can spend a lot of money. I think the Highlands pre-K's pegged out at about $8 million, and we just approved $2.6 million. Should we get some sort of priority schedule on these things, or we're in the middle of a budget year? We approved a budget 4 or 5 months ago, and a lot of these things were not even topics of discussion. So, I'm not opposed to any of them.
I
did, Ronnie. I did.
Yeah. I don't think this is really new funding. If you heard the quote, what we have is we still have $600,000 from contingency from the Macon Middle School, from the renovations there that have to be used at Macon Middle School. And as I said, the Board of Education has received a grant that has to be used for over $100,000, and we're all going to be able to put that into this. So really, as far as moving monies, probably coming from you for this project, that simply will not happen. We have the funds available now from the contingency from the funds that we will help contribute and donate toward the project.
Mr. Mayor, the only thing you're asking for is permission to proceed to get pricing, right?
If that's what both the boards are agreeing to.
Not to spend no money, we're just trying to get
the
current price.
Yeah, of course, before we can spend any money with schools, we need to go through the bid process.
You need a motion?
I keep saying my personal opinion on this, but I guess that's why I'm sitting here, so I can go. I consider both this middle school track and the Highland soccer field that we're getting ready to attack or discuss next as, I consider them both personally as somewhat of an emergency for Macon County. So why? If we don't prepare both of those facilities right now, I mean, they're already missing track season this year because we can't do it there. Highlands soccer field, they miss over half their season this year because the field's in deplorable condition. I think they both need to be repaired. If we don't start that ball rolling forward right now, they're going to miss next season too. You know, I'm a soccer dad, and my son's graduated and moved on and played a little bit of college, or little soccer in college right now. But imagine, I'm going to throw this out there, again, I'm a soccer dad. Imagine the Franklin football field. What would happen if you missed half of the season because the field was in deplorable condition? This community would go berserk, and I think it needs to be a level playing field for all our sports. And I consider it somewhat of an emergency that we need to get the ball rolling quickly on both of these projects and get it prepared so that next season we won't have this same discussion and our kids can have these facilities move forward and play on.
Let's put it out to bid. Sure. Do we need a motion for that, or?
Sure, for one motion.
I'll make a motion to put it out. Put the resurfacing of the track in Macon Middle School out for bid.
Second. Motion by Commissioner Young, second by Commissioner Bill. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Is that unanimous? I'm sorry.
No.
Yeah, thank you. No?
No.
So we have 4 in favor and 1 nay by Commissioner Higgins. All right, moving on to the Highlands soccer field. Mr. Mayor, do you want to give us a quick background?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry. Yes, again, this was not identified in the county CIP. It was not included in the school system capital outlay request. There was, at the school board meeting on September 26th, both the principal and the soccer coach did present to the Board of Education regarding hazardous conditions at the Highland soccer field. They had also presented a quote that they had received March 25th, 2022 to the school board at this time for $840,050. On October 13th, this project was discussed at the Liaison Committee. Mr. Chairman, the Liaison Committee discussed many of the same concerns that you have had here tonight regarding soccer season that was inhibited last season and potentially jeopardized for next season. The Liaison Committee highlighted, drainage as well as water runoff issues are contributing to the adverse field conditions at the Highland soccer field. The Liaison Committee questioned that following turf installation, will these runoff issues continue to persist? Will the turf installation address the runoff issues and drainage issues that persist there now? What are the costs to mitigate these drainage and stormwater issues? Was food for thought the Liaison Committee had also discussed, as well as have additional field locations been evaluated. It is evaluating different locations, something that either of these boards would be amenable to, and would it be best to consult with the design professional as part of this process to be sure that with turf installation and the issues of drainage and water runoff be mitigated as we're going through should the board decide to move forward with a refurbishing the field. So with that being said, the Liaison Committee recommendation is the same as it was for the middle school track project. For the school board and board of commissioners to discuss and prioritize the resurfacing of the Highland soccer field. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Any questions, comments, Mr. Breedlove, Nelson?
You kind of mentioned maybe one comment in that, which is true. This is not included in our capital outlay projects prior to this. But bluntly, we weren't aware of the shape that this field at very least is descended into. I love what you said, Commissioner Tate. Soccer is Highlands football, and it's very important to the community up there, and they take pride in that. So now that we're aware of the situation, I think prioritizing this is a need. do think the liaison committee handled it very appropriately. I think that Mr. Rowan was pointing out, we have someone look at it, give us the best estimate as far as the liability of turfing and what needs to be done to that. But by all means, I think the Board of Education will always supports moving forward and trying to accommodate the request for the soccer field at Highlands. Hillary, did you have anything?
I would just like to add, as far as time goes, that if we do not address this project right now, we're not just missing this season, we're going to be missing 3 more seasons, because it's going to have to be done in the summer. So if next summer this doesn't get done, then that means the entire school year for the next 2 seasons for boys and girls soccer, we won't have that field. And it's also used daily by our PE teachers as well. And there have been many instances where the children can't get out there and use that field. We had 8 games that were affected this year. 6 of those have been rescheduled, but now that it's 20 degrees at night, I don't know that those are even going to be able to be replayed because our fields are currently frozen. So that's a question mark for us as well. And one of those, in addition to the 6 games, another one had to be relocated down here in Franklin, and another one was stopped mid-play because a player was injured and the referee said the field was not safe enough to play on. It's pretty emergency in my opinion.
Is Mr. Weller here?
Yes,
Jim?
Yes, sir.
I remember 14 years ago when we tackled this the first time, don't you?
Absolutely.
I
also wanted to came to you.
So is this the best location that you know of in Highlands?
Well, if you're talking again about school or county property, absolutely. We did a complete study of all the properties available. Buck Creek is not large enough. That field is maximum width is 45 yards and 85 yards long. The one at the Highland School is 52 yards wide and 108 yards long. We also looked at the track area, and it was commented that you can't have a soccer field on your football field because your track apparently is narrower. I heard that the first time tonight. You need a quarter-mile track, and our track in Highlands, we need a track for PE and other uses, but our track is 1/6 of a mile, and that's the maximum room we have for it. So it's really not realistic to relocate it on premise other than where we put it, because we had done those extensive studies 15 and 16 years ago in order to come to you 14 years ago and get that field approved and built. The issue we have is we get 120 inches of rain, and I coached varsity girls soccer for double-digit years in Highlands. I'm recently retired from it. My son is now a coach at Highland School for middle school after he came back from college. And what I will tell you is our bigger problem is, one, the girls, varsity girls are the ones that really get the short end of the stick. They play in the spring, and which spring is relative in Highlands, everybody knows that. We start practices early February. It is very, very common for me never to have an outdoor practice before we play at other schools. When I was helping with scheduling of games, we would schedule 6, 7, 8 games out starting the season away because we can't play on the field. Partly because of, if we get a 6-inch rain over the weekend, that's one issue. The other problem is frozen ground. I don't know if you've ever been on a soccer field that has frozen ground with soccer cleats. It's the equivalent of having ice skates on a lake that's frozen. You just keep on sliding. So you can't play on it as well. The turf field allows for that year-round. It allows for PE. It allows for multi-use functions. We've even talked, I realize I'm not speaking for the principal. This is just other ideas, we can have graduation on it, like I hope Franklin continues. I think it's a great new tradition, so to speak. But the bigger problem is not just, this year we had significant amount of rain early. The field got in terrible shape because it just would not and could not drain fast enough. Now since then, come up and look at the field, it's looked the best it's ever looked. But we have an unprecedented drought right now in Highlands, as far as the amount of rain we've had. There were issues of, surface drainage. One of them is drainage through the field. This new field actually drains through it. It's built flat, just like, I hope the Franklin High School football field ends up being turf for the same purposes that we're talking about. But the girls' season, also like I mentioned, you can't repair grass fields in Highlands in end of November, December, January, and then we start girls. So the girls get the field beat up from the boys, and then we try and repair it over the summer. It looks pretty good, and then we get torrential rains, and it gets torn apart again. The drainage that people have talked about is there's a ditch along the uphill side, and I will tell you that Mr. Tate and some of his crews, and I personally and other people have been out there. Every year we clean out that ditch to make sure that that surface water does not affect the field. The problem is the fact that we've had 100 to 120 inches of rain through the past 3 years, and it doesn't dry out. So, and then like I said, as soon as it does dry out, the only reason it gets firm is it either freezes or we have a drought.
And Mr. Chairman, just for your information and the board's information, we have mitigated that. We mitigated the creek over there, or it's a dry creek until it comes with a big hard rain. That has been mitigated already. It was mitigated when the soccer field was originally constructed, so that part has been done.
Chairman, may I add a little bit to the soccer field? I'm John Sherrill. I was the contractor for the proposed soccer field in Highlands. I was the lowest bid on the building of the soccer field back when it was being talked about. It was $240,000. That was start to finish, lights and everything. When so we were all down there. I was the lowest bidder, but for some unknown reason, we changed all the design of the drainage. We saved $100 and some thousand under my bid by changing the drainage and the light fixtures. That's the problem with that soccer field. That drainage was designed exactly the way it should have been. And then when it was constructed, it was all changed. That soccer field was not designed the way that it was built, and had it been, it would have drained that very well. My kids played on that soccer field. When we design this stuff, if we don't have the money to do it right, we need to step back and do the jobs right so we don't have to redo them. This is costing the taxpayers. You can build something the right way. But like I said, if we don't have the money to do it right, let's don't do it. Because a teacher told me right here at Franklin High School years ago, if you don't have money to do it right the first time, when will you have the money to do it over?
Can I comment on that, please? Sure. I was actually part of the whole process from beginning to end. That field actually has a complete socked herringbone drainage system below it, in a gravel bed, geotech, graded out, and then, of course, sodded to get the field built. I was there from beginning to end. I'm not sure what changed in that process.
Well, it changed because...
Well, I was part of producing the drawing, so I would say that's not true.
Okay, but anyways, does it have a 5-foot crown in the field?
You can't have a 5-foot crown.
That's what it was designed to have.
Well, then that's not good, because you can't have a 5-foot crown.
I'm going to move this on.
Yeah,
I don't disagree with you. Hindsight's 20/20. I don't disagree. We got a problem now. We got to correct it.
Yeah.
So I don't disagree.
Design professional.
Go ahead, Mr. Jones.
I don't know if you can hear me, but I do feel like Highlands is in a geographic disadvantage. They're in a climate that seems like it's 10 degrees colder every day. The sun rises kind of like an hour late, an hour early. That field has, I'm not a landscaper, some kind of Bermuda or a zoysia grass, which essentially turns brown October, November, and it doesn't green back up until about March. The issue is you have middle school, JV, varsity, soccer, plus health and PE, and the grass doesn't have time to repair itself. So I thought that's one of the big issues. I took a trip up there myself this summer. It was a dry week, and we were ankle deep in mud. I mean, that's a fact. I don't know if it was drainage. I don't know why it was like that. I just know I walked around and it was a sunny day. So I do realize there's an issue there. I guess my only real concern is, I don't want to put turf on it and it fail. I want to make sure that the money we spent is well spent. And I don't disagree with the fact that we need it. It was, and I think that's why the Liaison Committee made the recommendation we did to do some soil borings, some kind of samples to make sure that the money we spent is well spent.
I understand. I do want to mention this, just, the company that we had come look at it didn't do investigations. They spent quite a bit of time there before. They do, both community center, high school, collegiate, and professional fields. They, I realize that this is apples and bananas, but I mean, they do the Atlanta United soccer field, which is also the Falcons. They do fields all across the country, so they are knowledgeable. They had a high level of comfort, including warranting what they were doing, knowing the issues we have, because it's a complete system. It's, it's 12 inches off the top, and then they build it back up with a complete system, which is basically a big wash pan and drainage. So I'm just mentioning that because it is.
If they're willing to provide us a written warranty, I'm going to give that my support.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Certainly.
So what do you need, Mr. Manager? A motion to move forward with the bid process to see what kind of money we're talking about?
However you all want to handle it.
I make a motion.
Or is it prioritization and discussion?
I make a motion that we go ahead and work with the design professional team and see where do we go from here.
Mr. Manager, let me ask, just based upon Commissioner Shill's motion here, hang on one second, Commissioner Shill. Are we going to have to hire a design professional to look at the Macon Middle School track, or are we just going to put it out for bid based upon what's your thoughts on that?
I think the vote was to put the project out to bid as an
So, I guess my point is, do we have a set of plans, or what do we actually, did you catch it, correct?
Yes.
Or are we going to set that up? Do we need to do the same with the Highland soccer field, or we hire one firm to handle both and put it out for bid, or how do we, what's your recommendation on the best route with that? Sorry, I'm going to put you on the spot.
Well, the schools would be putting this one out to bid as well, so I would defer, if they prefer to put both projects out in one envelope or in one envelope, that would be easier for them.
But I guess it's not, sorry, I'm trying to make this as clear as I can. I'm not, it's not really the same type of project. I think it'd be two different companies handling both. But do you hire one design professional? We'll look at y'all too. Do we hire one design professional to handle both projects and draw up a scope, or is this something we just do in-house?
My answer, Chairman Tate, is I don't think the track group that we're talking about has expertise based on what Mr. Weller is describing. It sounds to me like the project at Highland School is much more complex, much more involved, and is going to need a whole lot more expertise to make it, as we're all talking about, something worthwhile and something that's going to last. So I think we have to look at this in two totally different angles. The track we'll look at, and I'll just bring up a proposal to y'all based on what we're proposing to do. We're going to look to find the most a part of it can before we bring it to you. You can get the best quote. But I really don't think you can hire, they have the same firm doing both of these projects.
Okay. I don't disagree with that.
And as far as the design professional goes, as long as it's under $50,000, then the work would not have to be formally bid. You could exempt those services. I know the county does for those services that are less than $50,000. If that's what it takes to evaluate. But until they talk to a firm that is in that business and get some idea of the cost, I think it would be preliminary to say right now. It sounds like what Mr. Weller is saying is that the proposal for the project up there has included some preliminary design work, such as we're talking about, that would lead to them issuing a warranty for that field. So I think, like Josh said, I think we need to keep that in mind as well too. If you have a firm that's willing to come in and construct, that might be included in their scope of work if they're going to warranty it. But if not, it's certainly something that if the school system would like to include that in the scope of work for the project, I think that they could do that as well.
Sure. Mr. Weller, I know you're a design professional. Do you have a recommendation on that? Do you think we need to hire a design professional to oversee that, or an engineer? Do you think we can just move forward with it?
Well, my thought would be if the companies that part of the bid process would need to just include that they need to warrant the work. They need to understand that we're making no guarantees as to the substructure, et cetera. They need to do enough investigation so they can design a system, they can bid it appropriately, and they can warrant it appropriately. If they do that, I don't really see a need for paying somebody like me or I'm not suggesting that, paying an engineer to come in and pay them to tell you the same thing, because that's what they're going to tell you.
They're going to. Good, thank you. Okay, thank you. My clarification I needed from that. Okay, Commissioner Shelton, sorry. I went off on a tangent there.
You were very appropriate.
So you were making a motion, Commissioner Shields, and I interrupted the school board.
Yeah, my motion pertained to consult with the design professional concerning the drainage and stormwater issues prior to construction.
What was your motion? Put it at the bid or?
Well, no, not to put it out the bid, to consult with the design professionals concerning drainage, stormwater issues prior to the construction. We got a problem, but we're not finding a rhyme or reason for the problem. I don't know how you can.
I think we were just hearing that we might not need to take that step, and we can just put it out to bid through the companies for potential resurfacing without having to hire a design professional.
Now you said resurfacing? Am I talking about the wrong one?
No, you're correct. Okay. You're correct.
I think when the liaison committee met, commissioners, it was obviously we weren't aware of the information as to what it gave. At the time we looked at it, we had no idea that a professional firm had actually looked at the project and had come forward with the scope of work that apparently they've already given them, along with a warranty, which, as Mr. Young says, how do you argue with that? So, based on what I'm hearing, we'll be glad to do that, but I think we're ready. It appears we've got what we need to move forward. If you have a firm that comes with recommendations, we can go back and look and see what they've done. If the board would like to get the other bids, I think we're ready to move forward based on what information we have and the qualifications of this firm that Mr. Wells has described. So I don't think having to get an engineer or hire an outside firm based on that information has any merit whatsoever.
Listen, I'd like to make a motion to put this out for bid, to maybe solicit an RFQ or an RFP for the resurfacing of the Highlands athletic field.
Yeah, I think it's a point. I think it's a point of procedure, Mr. Shields, you need to retract.
Yes.
You need to retract your motion, Mr. Shields.
Yes, I do. And second, Josh.
Okay, so we got a retraction on the motion. We've got a motion by Commissioner Young, second by Commissioner Shields. Any further discussion?
Just a comment. Our purpose tonight was to talk about Franklin High School and look at preliminary plans, but we've gone into a shopping spree here. We've got 3 items here not identified in the capital improvement plan, which was Macon Middle School track, Highlands soccer field, and the Highlands pre-K. None of those 3 items were mentioned 6 months ago. And we're looking at $10 million expenditure for all of them, $8 to $10 million. Is it prudent for us to act out of budget, out of the capital improvement plan, just to spend $10 million? These are all worthy. I'm not saying these are not worthy projects, but the process that we're handling these, we got a sewer plant that's malfunctioning, we got a issue with geothermal wells at Iowa. Is there not a reason or to prioritize our spending? I mean, there is a limit as to what we can do. And to just sit here and casually commit for $10 million tonight with, I just can't support that.
I understand and I respect your decision, Commissioner Higgins. I agree. As I mentioned earlier, I think these are issues that we didn't know about 3 months ago, 6 months ago.
Well, we knew about it. We didn't know about it as a board, but apparently they've been circulating in the system for a number of years. Why are we just finding out about it? I heard about the Highlands soccer field 2 months ago. Let's throw $840,000 at it, without it being.
Yeah, I personally rather go ahead and get this repaired and kick the can down the road.
Agree. It should have been repaired 2 years ago.
I don't disagree.
It's like the film that he showed the 88, the gentleman trying to walk, and there's a pile of concrete on a gravel bed, and he's trying to navigate that.
Something's wrong here, folks. We neglect it till it breaks, and all of a sudden it's an emergency. And I just don't think you can operate a household business or government agency in that manner as far as appropriations go. And I won't be supporting any of these that were not included in the capital improvement plan until we have a smaller meeting with smaller people, take out the emotions, and prioritize capital improvement spending for our educational facilities in Macon County.
All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye and raising your right hand. Aye. Opposed? Aye. Let the record reflect a 4-to-1 vote. Thank you.
Actually, she'll stand vote.
What? I thought it did. Okay.
I saw his hand go up. I'm sorry. All right, moving on. Architect recommendation for the Highlands Pre-K project.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. This, just a little background, as you all know, the Board of Commissioners did authorize us to go out for RFQ for this project on May 10th. The board voted unanimously to release this RFQ for architectural services. The Liaison Committee met to evaluate the response to the RFQ on October 13th. And out of the firms responding to the RFQ, the Liaison Committee would recommend LS3P to move forward with this project. Now, the combined cost, based on what we had received, the information that was included in the scope of work includes both the pre-K expansion, and it will require renovations to the Highlands Middle School. So with that being said, that is the scope of work that this board approved to be distributed for that RFQ, and we'd just like the board to note that. I would like you to note that because we're going to discuss in item number 9 an application to the North Carolina Repair and Renovation Fund that the Board of Education would like to submit the Highlands Middle School renovations as part of. So as you can see that if this board does decide, that these boards do decide to move forward with authorizing negotiations with the architect, then we will need to be sure that the scope of this project, as originally put out in the RFQ, is reassessed, being as we are going to now, should the board decide, the renovation portion would be included in the fund application to the North Carolina Lottery. So I realize that was a mouthful, and nonetheless, we could, so at this point, the motion, if the board decides to move forward, would be to enter into contract negotiations with LS3P for the Highlands Pre-K project, and that motion would also need to include, we need to reassess the scope of this project if the Repair and Renovation Fund application for Highlands Middle School is approved also.
Mr. Manager?
Yes, ma'am.
I would like to make a point about the combined project cost under 8CI. From the advanced planning study that Novus Architecture did and released to us in March, part of that did include some renovation to the current existing middle school building and some other things. That is no longer in this project. The combined project that is in the scope that you guys are looking at tonight is $5.5 million. So there's some good news. Okay,
that comes from the capital outlay request that was submitted to the school system. The project sheet was $8,094,166. So that's where that number comes from.
Can I correct Dr. Baldwin that we amended that after we learned some more information? I just want to make sure that y'all saw the correct price tag.
Thank you. So that 5.5 is Highlands Pre-K only?
No, sir. It includes the pre-K as well as building the addition to the middle school to account for the displaced classrooms with the involvement of pre-K, and we did go through this in our liaison committee, but we've step by step. So some of us have seen this, but it also includes renovation to a very old CTE section, some repurposing of interior hallways for both safety and maximizing classroom space, basically filling where there's space in classrooms and a hallway, as well as some much needed improvements to our media center. That will not change the footprint, but it does involve getting in there and doing some things that need to be done internally, opening up a door for some outdoor spaces, and modifying. This is a small piece of the budget, but some outdoor space on the interior of the school. It will. What we did when we first started looking at this project was media center renovation. This has been 3 or 4 years ago, and as conversations went on, we met with stakeholders in the community. What we really ended up identifying was a crisis as far as the pre-K options in Highlands, and that really directly affects the entire county because we have a lot of folks that come up and work in Highlands and are desperately trying to find somewhere to put their kids in childcare where they can get to them after work. I think the timing was right that we didn't jump into a media center renovation. We took our time, we thought about it, and we independently paid for the $35,000 concept study, which was presented to this board in advance of your approving for the bidding of the architect, and that's what brings us to tonight.
Thank you. I would add that if, again, the RFQ has been submitted by the architect. The Liaison Committee has selected an architect from the ones that have submitted the RFQ. So when we authorize the contract negotiation, if that is what these boards desire to do, we need to be sure that it includes the most recent Highlands pre-K renovation budget. So what I'm hearing now is that it's going to be different than the one that was included in the school system's capital outlay request. We need to make sure it's reflective of that, and we need to also make sure, if we move forward with this, that there is no overlap in what we're putting in the architect contract for these renovations. There's no overlap with the application we're submitting to the repair and renovation fund.
I would also like to make one point about the recommendation of LS3P. Emily Tate, who presented earlier tonight as part of the team for Franklin High School, was the point person for the advanced planning study that we conducted when she was with Novus Architects. So she has submitted herself as also being a project manager for this project, so she's very familiar with the concept study and what it identified as well as the budget.
Mr. Superintendent, I got a question. On a pre-K, I know that don't come under the Macon County Schools. What about funding staff and personnel? Would that be in the school budget, or is that entirely on the county?
The operational budget of pre-K is funded by the state, depending upon the number of developmentally delayed students and economically disadvantaged students who attend those pre-K classrooms. If there are 18 developmentally delayed and/or economically disadvantaged students, the state would fund those positions. If there are 15 developmentally delayed economically disadvantaged students, we could then provide 3 slots for private pay students, which would families would provide up to $500 a month for tuition to those students. With the combined private pay and developmentally delayed students, economically disadvantaged students, the operational budget could be covered. If there aren't enough of those DD and EDS students, then we would have an operational budget shortfall.
Can you pay up in the cost for private pay?
It depends on how many students you have.
If you had it open today, do you have a guesstimate on how many students y'all have at this place?
Yes, sir. The space would account for 2 18-children classrooms, so a total of 36 students. Right now, at Highlands Community Child Care Development Center, they have over 60 on the wait list. That's at one of our centers. Another center has had to shrink a little bit. We have churches trying to step in and help. They've got over 50 on their wait list. Some overlap, some don't. It's not a good situation up there. My children, it was a relief to get them into a center.
So how many children total with the new K school?
36.
36.
Yes, sir.
You've got 60 on the way.
And that's of all ages. I just want to be clear about that. But what happens is if we can absorb 36 with an in-house pre-K at Highlands, that opens up those daycare facilities to take children of varying ages to fill up infant, 2s, 3s, and then their pre-K kids can come into our system. Does that make sense? So
how young do you take a pre-K student?
3 would be the youngest, if I'm right, Carol, but I believe I think we're going to have numbers for pre-K 4. I think we have enough students that it would be 4s, and if we had extra space, we could take 3. And that's not my area of expertise, but that's my understanding.
Okay. How many of those students would be academically or economically underprivileged? Do you have an estimate?
I was told tonight that 43%, around that number of children at Highlands School qualify for free and reduced lunch. My guess is it would probably fall in line with that percentage. What do you think?
I'm going to call Ms. Martin here. She's come first.
Must be able to find out.
With regard to your children, we're looking at making of these classrooms. If you have a pre-K classroom, since it's not a kindergarten classroom, and also the other state regulations for preschool, you may have 18 children in a class. In a specially designed class that needs other guidelines other than from school planning. Now these kids, you would need 2 adults, a teacher and assistant. Those funds from my past previous years of working with pre-K, you would need you could use Title I funds, which is for low disadvantage, and that's usually based on your free and reduced lunch accounts. I know I used to fund 1/2 or a position in a school for that because they met that guideline. The majority of our kids in Macon County right now in our 5 classrooms, a lot of them fall under the IDDA, Children with Disabilities. And then you can use federal red state form school, federal, you can use any type of form for that. Now, the result of that, the slots that are available, we have provided for teachers as a retention, promotion for teaching, because we're making county work, and I think our price went up to like $450, I mean, I've been down a year, so $450, $500 a month per child.
Okay, let me ask that again. How many kids would you estimate are economically disadvantaged or academically underprivileged in Highlands?
Do you have that information?
And for Highlands School, specifically.
For Highlands School.
For Highlands School. I'm just curious.
Just very low.
Very low.
Hillary, what did you just say about the Highland School in general? How many are on the lunch? What did you say on that?
43%. And Mr. Leitner just told me earlier today that the county average is about 58% in the county. I do want to clarify that there will be children coming up from Franklin whose parents work, who will be taking probably advantage of that if depending on their schedules and things, if that's the easiest way for them to drop off.
That's
so
not
I don't know
the
that that's an exact number.
We don't know how many of that 60 that's on the waiting list might be coming from Franklin. I'm sure there's some of them.
No, I'm sure. I know children we see for house, for pre-K.
We've only got 3 community.
3 children.
We talked about not licensing them as developmental classrooms because it does require additional staff, and we didn't think that would be responsible to do.
just to clarify, I don't disagree with this. I want to read to you an email that I know since has changed. This email was dated in March, but it was a capital outlay plan submitted to me from the school system. I don't disagree or dispute the fact that Highlands needs this. My point is, I think the school board, our liaison committee, and this board of commission have worked well together in the past year and a half since I've been on this board. Right here are the 5 priorities that Mr. Gibbs and Mr. Baldwin submitted to me. In addition, at the Macon Middle School, a multi-purpose locker room facility. We can check that box. We have an East Franklin Elementary School 6th classroom addition. We can check that box. I mean, that was, I believe, state or federal funding. It wasn't from my county, but regardless. Right here, Star 2BJ Elementary 6th classroom addition. I don't think we've started that one, right? Right here is building new Franklin High School. I mean, we're in the process of checking that box. And then right here is a renovation of Highlands Middle School. And on here, it's about a $1.6 million, $1.8 million renovation. I guess my point is, I take pride in what I do in the position I'm in, and I feel like we work well together. You know, next budget year, whenever we have another list like this, I hope we can check the same boxes and work together. To Paul's point, I do carry a burden financially. We have spent a lot of money. But the fact is that track at the middle school is a 1970 model. I'd say that's to date the school. It's cracked. There's inch gaps on it. It's almost embarrassing. The Highlands field up there, I feel the same way. It's well past repair when I was on site. I do understand it's better. So my point is, I don't dispute the fact that it's needed. I just feel like the process warrants respect, and I feel like it needs to be through the capital improvement plan. I understand it's on there now, but it wasn't on there as of March 7th when I got that email. So again, I did support, you know, entertaining the fact. Now that I understand it's $5 to $6 million, I think that needs to go through the budgeting process. And you know, don't keep me, Chairman Tate. I understand it's needed up there, and it's important for Highlands and their economic status. I just feel like it's
kind of like
the process.
It's kind of like the Macon Middle School locker room project today. Did you read it off, or did I miss that?
Yeah, I did read it off. I think it was, yeah.
Just for clarification, Mr. Breedlove, since this does not come under the umbrella of the school system, really and truly, K-12, would it ever make a capital outlay list?
You've asked me a very difficult question, Mr. Bill, but I have to give you an honest answer. I think there's a couple of things about pre-K that we have to keep in mind. One is that it's not part of the, and I'm going to make sure I say this on the road. This is not a accredited program in the North Carolina school systems. In other words, it's not a required thing. It's just something that we, to serve the children, have undertaken and are able to finance here in Franklin due to the work of Carol and Brooke in terms of providing funds to be able to do so. Now, I hate to say what I'm about to say, but this is true. And I want to make sure everybody understands what I'm about to say. Is, in Franklin, the pre-K classrooms we use are at risk because if we have enrollment increases in those schools where those pre-K classes are now located, pre-K will no longer be offered for that because we have to give priority to our students K through 4 at those schools. So I hope that makes sense. Yep. We're doing it because we think it's a great thing to do for the community, but hard choices sometimes have to be made, and if we don't have room for pre-K, we can no longer offer that. So we have to keep in mind when we're talking about Highlands, it's not an official school program. It's not something that's endorsed by the state that we're required to do. And bluntly, at Highlands, we're faced with the same situation. If Highlands continues to grow, and we had to have those classrooms, basic education K through 4 would take preference over being able to offer any pre-K classes. I mean, I hope that doesn't sound harsh, but that is just simply a fact of life. That's what it is. But part of this project is not just pre-K. I think we're losing sight of that. Pre-K is an important thing. We would love, and we're agreed to put in our capital outlay to be considered because Highlands has a problem, a very serious problem in terms of child care and continuing education. But don't forget also the reason that we're doing this part of it, the large part is the fact that we have a big middle school up there that needs substantial and a lot of repair. So we need to keep in mind the project just isn't pre-K. It's actually a project designed to benefit the community and to improve our schools up there and make it a better use for our community up there. So that's kind of where we came from. We're made aware by our representative there about the needs. We agreed that we would put it in our 2003 budget for y'all's consideration, and that's kind of where we're at with it at this point in time.
Thank you.
Okay. I've heard varying opinions on this, or different answers. How many pre-Ks are in Franklin right now?
Yeah, 5.
5. And they're all full, and
yes.
18 counties supplement that.
I have a question.
You were saying the state earlier, I can't recall the exact numbers, but you were saying the state help supplement those. Is the state handling those teachers, or is the county currently helping supplement those pre-Ks?
We fund it through just kind of an amalgamation of different things. We have private pay folks, which are typically our teachers, private pay preference, and we used our funding this year.
Ms. King. Before they come back up.
We use private pay funds to pay for our classroom. We use one of our classrooms, which is Carter to J. It is not a developmentally delayed classroom, so it's the only pre-K that we have with one teacher and one assistant. We pay half of the salary out of Title I funding, which is for economically disadvantaged. So 9 kids are NC pre-K. You have to be a 4-year-old by the August 31st cutoff. And you have to have a chronic medical condition, or your family has to meet low-income guidelines. If you do, then Region A, based on your attendance, they refund us for your attendance. So we collect money from them monthly. And then we also have families who private pay us. Right now, we're really popular because we're only $250 a month. We're using our art funding to reduce tuition payments. So we have a lot of interest. Also, our American Rescue Plan funding that we've done through DCPEE. That's how we did teacher bonuses initially, but I've also made sure that I've got everything in the green with our teacher pay and just taking the burden of the tuition off the family, so it's only $250 a month right now. When it runs out, it's going to be, it was kind of confusing for folks for 10 different payments of $450, so we're doing 9 of $500, which because people couldn't understand paying for August, and it was a short run.
Mr. Antoine, I think you had a question. Did I hear you? I think
yeah, we did. Have we, being that this is not obviously required by the school system, have we considered any kind of public-private partnerships with the private sector to help with this pre-K issue?
I will say what is required of us, most people don't know this, at 3 years old we pick up students with disabilities. So I have itinerant staff that travel to MVP, they travel to Tremont. These settings do meet a natural need to provide them with peers and provide them with settings where they can receive services. So we do travel around a lot to meet disabled children's needs, but as far as pre-K, we haven't explored that just because it's kind of not a mandate, just something that we waded into and seen a need.
We don't have the space. We don't have the space.
Well, I only bring that up because we do have an amazing community. So I think if it's something that was opened up to the public to be able to step in, I think we'd probably get a lot more help than what we're realizing. Because this is obviously an issue that needs to be taken care of. So I think if that's opened up to the public and we can team up with some people, we can come up with some better solutions probably.
And I can add this, MPP, we're in the final stages, of course, of building a new center now. We're in the final, choosing the final plan for that, and that's liaison to the MPP. So that's going to benefit Franklin. And those low income, or some of them might be full pay. We don't know that yet, but we won't have power.
To answer your question as it pertains to Highlands, there's a community coalition right now. It's very church-based. I serve on this coalition, and there are rec parks, and everybody who kind of is involved with kids in Highlands is on this. We have space opening up at our church that's taking some of the younger kids so that some of the older kids can have space. It's almost like whack-a-mole, who has a room, who has a person, who's good with staff, who has been training. We're trying really hard to address it internally, but it's not sustainable. And I think getting those kids somewhere where they're going to be in school in a couple of years and getting them school ready is another facet of this that will just help immensely if we can get them in a true pre-K at Highlands School.
And I'll give one final answer to that. They understand in our system. We have space limitations. And that's what we're doing, if you remember what I said, is we're adapting and using a lot of different funding to provide this service. But we're at the mercy of the classroom space we have, and that's what we're at the limit we are now. So your idea is great, but we can't advance into that because we simply don't have the space to expand the program.
Well, I understand that. I bring that up because I'll take, for example, after-school program.
Right.
We obviously that was a need, okay? Right. Myself as a private entity, my wife and I have opened up a karate school, so we help meet a large part of that need. That's just on a private, basis. And we team up with you guys quite a bit to be able to help out with that. So I'm just looking at maybe there could be an option like that for pre-K as well.
Well, let me say one thing too, and I'm a pre-K advocate, I'm a preschool and early childhood teacher. I've been working with this program since IDEA first started in Macon County when we work with school-age children. We're funded at 12.5, it's gone up to 12.75% for children with disabilities, that's ages 3 through 21. We serve them to the day before their 22nd birthday. We have children that come in and we believe fully, and I support pre-K, and I want to see pre-K in every school. But when you start looking at dividing these children out with children with disabilities, you need to think about that these are children that we're talking about that meet the definition of having a handicap disability. They have related services. We provide physical therapy, occupational therapy, vision therapy, transportation. There's 13 or 14 speech language, 13 or 14. For the years I've worked in Macon County Schools, Highlands, we've had 2 wonderful programs, 3 up there in the different churches and we've had partnerships. We still transition a lot of our children to the schools in our kindergarten classrooms so that they can be with non-disabled peers their age and can get ready for school and be ready for school. It's a very, very expensive program to run. And as you know, working with children with disabilities, one of the primary requirements is confidentiality. So very little we can share name-wise and disability-wise, but we are still as a school board and we recognize the need for pre-Ks. I wish we could put them in all schools. When I came back in this position over 15, 20 years ago, we had pre-Ks everywhere and it really is nice. We just want to extend that, but let me say too, that it's an expensive program with the teacher-to-pupil ratio. We are under a licensing criteria and guideline. The schools are not under that. We have different space requirements. We have different playground requirements, different requirements in the lunchroom, but you can serve them. It's a whole totally different program what the schools have to maintain. So, but we do realize they need to be in schools with our kids and their children too. And we're going to continue our work and strive to try to find ideas, and we will work with the county, try to find ideas where we can make this happen. And that's it, it's just a space issue.
I'd like to add one more thing about, back to Chairman Breedlove's point about the project is not just pre-K. These lists of the wait list we've seen at the pre-K is growing 20-25% over the last couple of years. Those kids are coming to Highlands. A huge piece of this project is a middle school addition that will give us 4 to 6 additional classrooms. As it stands right now, we've got 4 displaced, 2 from pre-K, 1 by new project-based learning system, basically like a STEM room, and another by adding a meeting/testing room to the media center, which is we need diarially. I'd like to see that as a 6 classroom building if we're going to go through this project. And I don't see us shrinking. Highlands is growing, Macon County is growing. It's great. We live in a great county. It's not just for these 2 classrooms that we're trying to outfit here with this. There's some really critical things that the school needs, and this is merely a piece of it. But it is one of the reasons that it's so urgent. And we're looking at the very earliest, if we start tonight doing what we can, the first kids in the pre-K classroom will get there in August of 2024. That's almost 2 years from now. So if we wait on this, we're already behind. We can't afford it.
Chairman Tate, I'd like to
Mr. Chairman.
express my views on this. I see where Chairman Tate's going with his question. Highlands is in a desperate need of child care. And as potentially a representative for Highlands and Sugarford and LJ, I see where he's going. We have 5 in Franklin. Not everybody in Highlands is rich. There are some very poor people in Highlands, I promise you. I spent the last 40 years of my life up there. My wife, being a native Highlander, she grew up as a very poor person. And there are many families in Highlands that are in need. So I see where he's going, but I also see where Commissioner Higdon is saying. We went through a budget process not too long ago. We have to do as all American families, make homes. We live on a budget. We need to adopt a budget and live inside that budget. It needs to come in to all these capital outlays. But to me personally, if these pre-Ks are so important to Franklin, they're also important to Highlands. And there is a need in Highlands for this. I don't know how we get there, but I'm sort of confused because I've had an in-depth meeting with Dr. Baldwin about pre-Ks and Mr. Jetter. And I asked both of them specifically, are these pre-Ks benefiting our children? Both of them said yes. But when I talked to the group in Highlands that is promoting these, they are saying, we need somewhere to put our children. Are we going to put these children in there for pre-education before they get to kindergarten? Or we just need a daycare center? Because Chairman Tate, your wife is retiring, or she already retired. She's done a wonderful job. My kids went through Miss Gordon's up there. We paid. All 3 of them went through. It was a private pay. Wonderful. But that was a private entity. We paid. We paid out of our pocket. I'm all about private sector. If our children are benefiting from this pre-K for their education, that's one thing. But if we need a child care, I think it's a private sector. And I think we need to focus on daycare centers versus education process. Because all the people that I've talked to, they need a daycare center, not a purpose for their child and their education purpose. But on his behalf, I know exactly what he's saying. There is a need in Highlands. Our people up there need stuff. Is it a pre-K? Is it something that the education process pays for? Or is it a private entity that we need a daycare center? Because I asked specifically, when Chairman Tate's wife retired, or retiring, I said, why don't we find somebody to take it over? The response I got, we can't find anybody. Well, if we can't find one person to take this over, how are we going to find 4 teachers to deal with the pre-K. We're in a dilemma. I mean, we're in trouble. But these are adult conversations about this. We can't come in here and expect grandma and grandpa over here, 85 years old, to pay for a daycare center. But if our children are truly benefiting, and that's what we need through the educational process, then that's what we need to provide. But if we can provide them for Franklin, we can provide them for Highlands. Thank you.
Thanks, John.
Just to confirm also, these are, people will pay to use these pre-Ks. I want to make sure that's very clear. It's not free. It is a private pay. Unless. Right.
And there is a duality, I think, anybody with a kid needs childcare, but also we are much more rigorous in the private sector. Any of our classrooms were 5-star licensed. We also have standards just like people do in their K-12 classrooms. So you're welcome to come visit any of those. They are rigorous, they do contribute. If you've got a 3-year-old who's never been anywhere, it's great to be able to put them at their school to have the same smells, the same people, the same sights. And it also meets a need, which is cheaper than any place in town. So there is duality in it. We're not a daycare center, we're educational, but we do meet a need.
And just to follow up, real quick, John, following your point, I totally understand what you're saying, but I think you understand in Macon County, the big thing was about the economically disadvantaged population we have that's been proven. So those funds, we were utilizing the best of our ability, but if we didn't have those, we would not be able to do what we're doing. So it's like I said with child care. I can't answer for Highlands. I know Hillary says there's a need there.
It's similar to that.
Similar, but if there's nothing economic, then yes, it's a viable, long-term project. But we don't know that. Mr. Bill asked, was there a possibility, and I have to answer this honestly, was there a possibility that the commissioners would have to pick up some of the funding for that activity? And the answer to that is most definitely yes. I mean, it's just, I'm sorry to say, that's, you're touched the point. That is a possibility to move forward, to keep that thing going. And Highlands commissioners make a step forward because they don't have access to the funding we have here due to various factors and other types. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
So I totally understand you. Our position was we were told there was a need for the Macon Middle School and Highlands Middle School and some other things that would be done. And would we also agree that we could find room for a pre-K that could be affordable and sustained? Would we agree to that? And yes, we're here for the children. That's what we're looking at doing. But you made a valid, very valid point. You have to be able to pay for it. And you can't, if it's a private sector, then we understand that. It's the very same. So we're simply putting it out there and agree to put it into our budget for them to consider. And then those are the questions that they will, I'm sure, be asking questions about how viable is this project based on all the information that we have at that point in time.
And Mr. Bailey, you asked the amount of county, local funding that goes into pre-K down here, and it depends on year to year. If we have enough state funding to cover that budget, which sometimes we're short, we have to get in our fund balance to break even for that year. We don't budget for pre-K in our local budget.
I think I'd like to make one final point, just looking at the project holistically. Right now, everything costs more. So I think we feel like the timing is right to get these critical improvements done to the media center, improvements to the CTE space, which we've had to pivot to a completely different CTE ag program than what we had in there before. We've been identified as a great candidate for some project-based learning through some of the consultants that we've used to having STEM and STEAM spaces for that, as well as the middle school edition. Doing this all at once is going to be the most cost-effective way to do this. And I think we've exhausted what we need at this point. I'm not going to say forever, but we did a lot of background with stakeholders, both faculty, administration, parents, and the community. So we feel really good about what we're presenting to you as a package.
Just one more comment to John's comment. A few years back, John, I chaired a complete study on child care in Macon County, and that report's available at MPP. what we found out, that private daycare is wonderful. But the problem is they can only take so many subsidized kids. They cannot keep the doors open if they take over a certain percentage of children that are subsidized. They just cannot make it work. It's very expensive, as we know, those of us who've paid for child care over the years. But the reason you don't see child care, centers on every corner, it's tough business. And you can ask these people that's in that business. We interviewed everybody at that time that was in the business. And if you take so many subsidized kids, unfortunately, they cannot make a living. They cannot keep the door open. So, I'm like you, private would be wonderful. Just do it all private. But the fact is, that's not reality. That ain't going to happen. I mean, we've got too many kids, and you're correct in Highlands. Some of those kids, especially those coming from Franklin, and I'd say out of this 60, a lot of those kids are probably from Franklin, and a lot of those would probably be subsidized. And but I'd encourage anybody who wants to know about child care and how important it is to call Chuck Sutton at MPP and ask for a copy of that study we did. It's very thorough. We worked on it for about 8 months. So, and it also tells you how important good child care is, quality child care. John, I think you're right. Private would be wonderful, but it's just not. These folks can't make a living with too many subsidized kids.
Well, is there a way that the county could possibly pump in additional funds instead of taking the whole burden for a teacher?
Well, if you start down that road, there's no end to it. You have to, the state sets the guidelines, there are federal guidelines. So we looked at that also at the time.
I think we were pretty fine as well. We serve 91 students in pre-K. We have over 200 students in kindergarten. So you're looking at 200 students across the county. We could pick up in pre-K, a minimum. That's a considerable amount of money.
My son that lives in Wilmington, they have one daughter. Both of them work for the government. They live in Hanover County, and they're paying $1,200 a month for child care there. And we've actually begged them to come home so Mimi could take care of her, but the pay scale is just totally different for what they are. But it's still at the same time, the burden of $1,200 a month is huge for those. So anyways.
So, Mr. Chairman?
Good, thank y'all for just a fantastic discussion. I appreciate everybody, the interest in turning in. As all of y'all know, my wife has invested her life into pre-K in Highlands, and I'm the one that's paid for that. She's paid herself $12 an hour with zero benefits for the past 15 years doing that. So I assure you I'm the one that's helped supplement that. But thank y'all for the discussion. It's important to me. With that said, let's make a decision here, move on, and keep our night rolling. So, Commissioner Bill, you were making a comment, sorry.
I'm sorry?
You were about to make a comment before I spoke.
Oh, no, I just wondered if, so Mr. Manager, out of this $8 million, do I understand it right that a little over half would go to pre-K and the rest of it would go to renovation in the middle school?
Actually, that budget actually was realized that it's the total amount was reduced to $5.5 million for the higher project, with pre-K as well as the high school renovation. If we are able to apply for and receive that renovation or repair fund grant, that would reduce that by roughly $500,000.
This includes the new building, the media center, the CTE space. It's the entire package.
5.5.
And it looks like we'll be able to get part of the renovations done at a little over 6. In fact, the pre-K space is the very least expensive piece of this. It's just the new addition to accommodate for this place classroom as part of that. Yeah, I think literally what you have to do to outfit the pre-K space is add 2 bathrooms. And then that's the 2 classrooms, and in addition to the playground that out front. But then you gotta look at where you're going to the classrooms, and then I can go way deep into this, but it looks like we'll be able to get it done with this other money for the middle school roof and HVAC, the current existing building plus the new building and all the other things for just under 5.
So, unless y'all ask a question, we're solid.
It's a good deal.
Lori, do you have an existing loan out there that we could tag this money onto that loan, a low interest loan?
I don't think so. I think the loans we have on Highlands School currently is a QZAB, and I don't think those are around anymore.
It's gone.
It's gone, unfortunately.
But we took good advantage of it.
Yes, we did.
These are the committee questions.
Chairman Tate, one more thing about Renovation-Highlands School. I've always questioned since my children were there. We have high school classrooms in the elementary wing, and I've always questioned why that is. And part of that plan here is to remove those out of the elementary wing. Should have been done a long time ago.
That is part of it. You're right.
What are you looking for, Mr. Manager? Whatever we're going to do.
The exit.
Whatever y'all want to do. So, authorize county manager to enter into contract negotiations with the LSP3 pre-K project, reassess scope of project. So, liaison committee, is that your recommendation?
The liaison committee, the liaison committee's recommendation is simply stating the logical next step. Again, this was brought to the board in May. The Board of Commissioners at that time voted unanimously to release this RFQ for architectural services. When we received the responses to the RFQ, they were evaluated by the liaison committee. I think 3 firms were evaluated. From those 3 firms, the liaison committee felt that LS3P was the most qualified, so that is who that they would recommend. Should the board decide to take, again, what would be the logical next step if this project is to move forward?
I'll make a motion, we authorize the county manager to enter contract negotiations with LS3P for Highlands Pre-K project middle school renovation.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Yes. Again, I just want to read over I guess I'd call it the capital improvement plan submitted by the school board, not throwing anybody in the bus. Project description: replace windows, HVAC, roof, flooring, refurbished elevator, new paint, etc. Building was built in '95 with no renovation, remodeling, or refurbishing in its lifetime. There's a whole list of concerns here. This was brought to our attention at that point in time at a cost of $1.6 million. Since then, I understand we've had somewhere around $1 million of lottery funds, thereabouts, generically speaking. I do support this, and again, it correlates with the capital improvement plan. But at this point in time, I feel like we need to budget the bigger project. Not saying I oppose it, I just feel like it needs to come down in more of a planning stage. No disrespect to anybody from Highlands, but that's just my opinion.
I'm gonna respond to you, Commissioner Young, before we take the vote on this. You're talking about $120 million Franklin High School project. Where's half of that fund's gonna come from?
So there's no disagreement. I guess my point is...
My point is my point on it is, Commissioner Young, in response to you, it'd be nice to throw Highlands a bone. He's going to be helping pay for a tremendous amount of this high school project if it goes forward. So, that being said, in the discussion.
I don't disagree with that. I just feel like
40%, about 40%.
Chairman Tate, I'd like to agree with you on your last comment.
Call the question, Mr. Chairman.
No, I have a quick statement to make, Mr. Sure,
go ahead, Paul.
Not in the capital improvement plan. A lot of confusion about cost. We cannot, we're in a building session here tonight. Every wish list, want list, we're funding it. This board is responsible for between 50 and 60 other county buildings, from the courthouse to the jail. Some massive buildings with some massive needs. They're not, those agencies and buildings don't get the attention we're giving here tonight. Worthy projects here. But if they're worthy tonight, they should have been worthy 6 months ago when we were doing our annual planning. And I think as leaders from the school board and from the Board of Commissioners, we must exhibit better planning and better appropriation of taxpayer dollars in providing services at all levels and to all sections of Macon County. I'll be voting against this.
All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Raise your hand. Those opposed? Aye. 3-2. Let the record reflect Tate, Bill, and Shields voted in favor. Young and Hinkton voted against. All right, next item. Repair and renovation fund application.
Yes, Mr. Chair, this is the last item. The repair and renovation fund was established by the North Carolina General Assembly in 2021. This fund contains monies generated from the North Carolina Education Lottery. This fund was designed to be distribute capital funding to all 100 counties across the state on an equal basis. $30 million was made available in year one. Macon County has received this allotment from year one, and it totals about $300,546, and that amount includes the interest that has been accrued on those funds. There is another $50 million coming down statewide in year two that is going to be distributed equally among all counties as well. Macon County is slated to receive about $500,000 in that year two funding allotment. The funding in the year two funding allotment will be distributed quarterly, beginning in November. We'll get approximately 20 to 30% of that $500,000 per allotment. The funds must be used for repair, renovation, or expansion of additional classroom facilities. The school system has identified renovations to the Highlands Middle School as a top priority for this funding in fiscal year 23. The Highlands Middle School renovations, as Commissioner Young pointed out, were identified in the capital improvement plan for the county. The Board of Education has approved application for these funds on September 26th of 2022. And the Highlands Middle School renovations were also identified in the capital outlay request. However, as I stated earlier, it was in conjunction with the pre-K project. At this time, the renovations here, I think Commissioner Young, you hit those new roof, windows, flooring, HVAC at Highlands Middle School, and the most recent estimate that the school system has provided us for this renovation project is $697,730. Now, one thing unique about this lottery funding, when you're submitting an application to the repair and renovation funds, it's going to require a joint application between the school system and the county. The action that would be requested here tonight is the school system has identified this renovation project. They have approved the application, so now the County Board of Commissioners would need to approve that application as well, and then that will be submitted to the North Carolina Department of Public Instruction. They will give it the thumbs up or thumbs down based on whether it meets the criteria required for this funding.
This is lottery money.
Yes.
And it's being dished out by
the General Assembly.
The General Assembly. When we apply, do we have to target how they're restricting us to how we use that money?
Yes, it must be used for the repair, renovation, or expansion of existing classroom facilities.
But not a specific building.
That's correct.
So it more or less comes into our general fund?
It sits in a fund. It sits in a fund in Raleigh that we would submit and get reimbursed for throughout the project. So although we're not at this point, we're just at the application point at this time. should this project move forward and we get into it, what would be required more than likely is us appropriating a fund balance in the amount of the $300,000 plus the $500,000. Say it was an $800,000 project, we would appropriate that amount, and then we would reimburse ourselves back from the proceeds from this fund.
That seems to be a convoluted process.
Like everything else they do.
Has Kevin Corbin left, our state senator?
Yes, Kevin's going.
That's crazy.
Just a little clarification, Mr. Manager. Last week in Winston-Salem, this was part of the discussion on how, because of the tiers and the way this money is being allocated, the lottery fund. So hopefully by those present at that meeting, that if the joint application, see, that's the problem. A lot of these counties aren't going through the process correct, but they're getting the money. So hopefully that is corrected according to the folks that was at that meeting. So I would certainly encourage, and at least let's apply for it. I mean,
well, we have the money. It's just a matter of they're either going to give us the thumbs up or thumbs down on whether the application we submit adheres to the criteria as the NCDEI sees it. If it doesn't, that money is ours. That money that is accrued there now is sitting in an account for Macon County with Macon County's name on it. The monies that we're getting in year 2, the $500,000, it will go into that same account and it will accrue for Macon County. All the NCDEI is doing is going to be looking at this application that again will have to be signed on to by the Board of Education and the Board of Commissioners and seeing if it meets the stipulations that are required by the statute that creates this fund.
But the application is the key.
At this point, the application, so the school system has identified these renovations. We think at this point that it meets this definition of repair, renovate, expand classroom facilities. But before it can move forward, North Carolina Department of Public Instruction is going to have to approve this application submittal, and at that point they'll say, yes, this is a good project, you can begin accessing these funds.
So that's pretty much a no-brainer, right?
And we hope that the remaining what's remaining of the $800,000 can be applied towards the sewage treatment plant. The Highlands Middle School project, we moderately certain fits the criteria that the DPI set forth. We're not as certain about the sewage treatment.
Right, because again, it goes back to that classroom facilities.
If it does, we'll finally be able to get the sewage treatment plant off the capital.
When is this application?
Use 600 some odd come off that 5.5 million. There's no figure we're talking about right looking at the Highland School, and then you can decrease that by 600,000.
Yes, sir. That's what, as I stated earlier, yes, this would play in to the number 8 on your agenda, in that should this be approved, then we will need to reassess the scope of this Highlands pre-K project with the architect to be sure that we're not being redundant in these, including this in the scope of the architect's proposal for the pre-K and also submitting it for the repair and renovation. So we need to be sure that happens.
Well, I'm boxed in. I voted against one thing. Now I'm going to have to vote. I'm boxed in. If we can make a blanket application to retrieve the lottery money, which is ours, bring it into the general fund and let us decide how to spend it locally, I'm for it. But a targeted application, I can't support it. But it sounds like I'm not going to vote to get a lottery money.
Submit a repair renovation fund application.
This has been a circus tonight.
So what do you need, Mr. Chairman?
Need a motion to submit a repair and renovation fund application to NCDPI. For the Highlands Middle School renovations.
That's good with the school board? Motion to proceed, Mr. Chairman.
A motion by Commissioner Bill. Second by Commissioner Childs. Any further discussion?
It's already in place.
All in favor, signify by saying aye, and raising your right hand. Sorry, go
This
ahead.
is for the capital outlay that I just, I mean, I just want to make sure I'm correct.
All in favor, signify by saying aye, raising your right hand. Aye. All right, let the record, all opposed? Let the record reflect the 4-1 vote. Is there any other business from our board?
Motion to adjourn, Mr. Chairman.
Hang on 1 second, Mr. Breedlove. We have no other business. Before we adjourn, I just want 10 seconds here to thank everybody for being here tonight. From my perspective, I've been doing this a long time. I've been in some very, very contentious meetings. I appreciate all of y'all's civil discourse tonight. So what's civil discourse? Civil discourse is having open and respectful conversations as we try and solve our county's issues. We have a very healthy board right now. We don't all agree, but we agree to respect each other and respect each other's opinions. And I'm very grateful for each member that's up here. And I'm grateful for all of y'all being here tonight, so thank y'all. So with that, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Higgins. Second by Commissioner Young, all in favor? Chairman Breedlove.
Just want to take a motion to adjourn. Second. All in favor?
Hearing all that.